Hey guys, today we're going to make a mini-map without using a second camera to render texture. By using UI elements, we can easily make stylized maps like many popular games. Stylized maps are also a great way to develop lore and set the mood for your game. So let's get to work.
My project starts with a piece of terrain centered at the world origin. Mine is 800 by 800, but yours can be any length or width. I also have Ethan from Unity Standard Assets. The first thing I want to do is create a camera follow script. The script will have an elevation, a follow distance, and an angle. Let's make sure to go to our main camera and put our script on it and make sure that under the target we put Ethan. Let's go ahead and create our mini-map. It's going to be screen space, so we'll need a canvas. Underneath the canvas, we're going to add a scroll view. We're going to make it clamped, no inertia. We don't need the horizontal bars or the vertical. Go ahead and center it. Press F. We want our canvas or our mini-map to be at the top right, so Alt-Shift, click. We also want the viewport to be stretched and the content to be stretched. Again, Alt-Shift, click. Our mini-map is going to be an image that we paint over, so the first thing we need to do is take a picture of our level. To do that, we're going to go to ISO mode, click on your Y-axis. Let's go ahead and disable the canvas and make sure that there's no gizmos displaying. Now grab your snipping tool. Let me get it centered. And save that. We want to edit this image, so go ahead and open GIMP or Photoshop, whichever you prefer. Go ahead and open your image. From this point, you can do anything you want. You can hand draw mountains if you'd like. Something like this. Territory boundaries. I'm just going to draw zones. Now that we have our minimap image complete, we're going to go ahead and export it and then import it into our project. Then, enable our canvas again, go to Content, add an image component, go to your map, make sure you set it to sprite, and add it to that newly created image component. Now that we have our map image, let's go ahead and create the scripts we'll need. We're going to have a mini-map icon, a mini-map world object, and of course, mini-map. How this is going to work is we're going to have world objects that move around on the terrain. These objects then inform their corresponding minimap icon, which lives inside the UI element of their new position every frame. And then of course the minimap is going to have all the logic on how to transform these positions. So let's start with the minimap icon. For this, we'll need a couple of references. First, we're going to get an image. We will need a reference to text. We want the rect transform. We're going to use this for the translation of the minimap icon, but what we'll also need is the rect transform of the image component, because we want the text to always have the same orientation. However, we want the image to rotate with the corresponding game object. Next, we're going to create a few setter functions. And finally, the text size. Now that our script is ready, let's go ahead and create our prefab. We want this to be a UI element, so we'll create it underneath the canvas. Name it mini map icon prefab. We are going to add our script to it. There's going to be two children. One is for the icon, which we'll add an image component for. And the next will be the text component. And we'll add a text UI. Go ahead and set up the references. Now let's move on to the minimap world object. The only purpose of this script is to inform the minimap of this object's position in world space. We will also define some characteristics of this world object's corresponding minimap icon. This minimap world object will also register itself with the minimap. The next step, let's go ahead and dive into the minimap and create this function. In this function, we're going to instantiate a minimap icon from the minimap icon prefab. We're going to set its icon color, text, and text size based off the minimap world objects variables, and then we're going to register it with a dictionary lookup that corresponds from world object to minimap icon. Let's first go ahead and create our dictionary. And let's get a reference to our prefab. We're going to set this minimap icon again to the variables described in our minimap world object. Then finally, put our newly created minimap icon inside the dictionary. As I said before, the minimap is going to be responsible for translating the world position of the minimap world object to the map position. To do this, we're going to need to know a couple of things about our game scene. We will need to know our terrain size and our map size. For the minimap, we will both need the parent, which is the scroll view, and we'll also need the content, which actually holds the image. So we'll need the rect transform for both. And while I'm thinking about it, let's go ahead and set up our singleton. Let's think about the update function. What we want to do is loop through all the world objects and move their corresponding icons based on the world object's position. When we have to change from one coordinate system to another, like we are now because we're changing from world space to map space, we should think about a transformation matrix. This is not unlike how we use the model matrix to transform the model's vertices from local space to world space, or how we use the view matrix to transform from world space to view space. To start, let's define a function called calculate transformation matrix. We're going to need our minimap dimensions, which we will get from our content rect transform. And we will also need our terrain dimensions. For the terrain, we are not interested in the Y value since that is up, so we only want the X and Z component. We're going to need to know the scale of our matrix. Imagine, if you will, that we move our character on the terrain 1 unit along the X-axis. The corresponding icon will also need to move 1 unit. However, it is not a 1-to-1 ratio. Seeing as our minimap, scroll view, is 200 and our terrain is 800, we need to find the ratio. To get that ratio, it is simply our minimap dimensions divided by our terrain dimensions. Next, let's define the translation part of our matrix. First, let's go ahead and move this minimap icon prefab to the prefab folder and get rid of that. The terrain origin is at 0, 0, or the bottom left. However, our minimap origin is in the middle. What we need to do is find where the basis vectors of the terrain land in the minimap. Way we can do this is simply just what is the bottom left of our minimap. To gain some intuition, let's go ahead and create a temporary image and move it to the bottom left. As we can see, it is -100, -100. This is half the width and height of our map, so we can put that dynamically inside of our script. Let's go ahead and create a reference for our matrix, and then we're going to use static function. TRS is translation, rotation, and scale. So we have our translation. We are not going to have any rotation, so we'll use identity here. And our scale. What this is going to create is a matrix that looks like this, with our scale ratio here and our translation here. It's important for me to note that this is a bit of a contrived example. If our terrain were to match our map's origin, to say our map's origin is in the middle, if we were to move the terrain where its origin was also in the middle, as you can see here, the cube is at 0, 0, then we would not need the translation part of our matrix. In fact, we wouldn't need the transformation matrix at all. And simply we could just multiply the incoming world positions of our minimap objects by the scale ratio and we would be done. However, I feel like gaining experience with matrices is important, And also, I want to be able to cover examples where you don't have the ability to move the origin of things. So make sure you uncommented this line out, and I'm going to leave this for reference. Now that we have our calculate transformation matrix, we want to call this every time either our map dimension changes or our terrain dimension changes. For now, I'm just going to call it once on start. The next step is to use our transformation matrix in a function we're going to call update minimap icons. In this function, we want to loop through our dictionary. Go ahead and pull the references out. And then using our world object, we are going to get a valid map position for our minimap icon. This function is going to be a small function, but I'm going to go ahead and pull it out as you may have use for it outside of the update. And again, we are not interested in the y coordinate of the world position, since that is up. We are only interested in the x and z. And we're going to return the product of our transformation matrix multiplied to our world position. To apply this new map position, we're going to use our minimap icons anchored position. Next, we'll handle the rotation. We want the minimap icon's rotation to match the world object's rotation. However, we can't just simply set it, as the world object's rotation is going to rotate along the y-axis. However, our minimap icon's rotation is going to rotate around the z-axis. And then set our minimap icon to match. Angle axis is going to ask for an angle of how much the rotation is, which we will get from the y-axis of our world object. And it's going to ask for which axis we're actually rotating around. Again, I said the world object will be rotating around the y-axis. Our UI objects are going to be rotating around the z-axis, which is the forward. Also note that due to the complexities of Unity being a left-handed coordinate system, this is actually going to have to be negative. I won't get into why, but I will post below an article of Stack Exchange that explains it a little better. We're almost ready to start testing, but there's a few more things I need to fix up. I need to come back up here, and I need to make sure that I set my minimap icon's parent to the minimaps transform, which is of course my content rect transform. I also need to create my update function and call update minimap icons from it. Going back to our project, we need to go and make sure that we add our minimap script to our scroll view. Fill in the references. Make sure you fill in the prefab. And then go to our Ethan character and add the minimap world object script to it. I have an icon of an arrow that I'm going to use, and I'm going to set the color to black. Okay, let's see what we have. Well, it is working. You can see that the icon is massive, and the map is a little small, so let's change those two things very fast. Let's go to our scroll view, and let's double this size. And since we got the size dynamically, we don't have to change anything in script. That's what's great about that. Also, let's go back to our prefab, and let's make this much smaller. Let's try 10 by 10. And we'll worry about the text later. Much better.
This video was a long one, but we accomplished a lot. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I will need your encouragement. In the next video, we're going to handle zooming the map and toggling the map full screen. I'll see you there.